Hello everyone, it is me, Nikki, living naturally, coming to you live from sunny Southern California, and I am here with a message to share with you today. It's a little bit more about me and my journey to becoming the Healthy Living Rebel, who is leading a movement called the Healthy Living REBElution. And oftentimes people, they're like, why or how are you so healthy? What has this journey been about for you? And when I was at a conference last month, or maybe it was this month, I had the honor and the privilege of sharing part of that journey. And it was very inspiring to a lot of women, especially who are just beginning this part of their journey for themselves. And so I hope this message is inspiring to you. If you have any questions after this is over, please be sure and reach out to me. I'm an open book and I would love to connect with you and answer any questions that you have. So the title of this live is Type A to basically flatline. So I was a typical former type A mom, room mom, team mom. I was a full-time teacher. I was also going through graduate school at the same time. And I also always had some kind of a side hustle, some kind of a creative outlet to make some extra money. With that said, I was also always stressed out. I had a lot going on in my life. I was burning the wick at both ends, so to speak. And I was always sick because, as you know, that when you're super stressed, your immune system is compromised. And when your immune system is compromised, you become more and more susceptible to becoming sick. And I was always around kids. So as I was always stressed and I was always immune compromised and I was always around little kids, I was always getting sick. And I did what any good, rule follower did, was I went to the doctor and the doctor would prescribe me antibiotics. I had reoccurring throat and sinus infections. And by reoccurring, I mean I was on a series of antibiotics probably every 30 to 45 days. I was taking antibiotics. And I had no idea what the ramifications of that would be on my health. Not short term, not long term. I just knew that's what you were supposed to do. If the doctor prescribed it, I faithfully took it. And what proceeded to happen after that is that I became antibiotic resistant, meaning that the antibiotics that they were prescribing to me in the past were not working to help treat the infections that I was constantly experiencing. And so they would have to prescribe stronger antibiotics. And I would take these stronger antibiotics, and over time, the same thing would happen. Now, what was happening in the meantime was that not only were these antibiotics, destroying my gut health, but they were also destroying my mental health. And so I was not only sick all the time, but I found myself in a state of despair. And, but still I did faithfully what I was taught to do, which was to do whatever the doctor said, until I started having allergic reactions to some of these very common antibiotics that I was prescribed for my reoccurring throat and sinus infections. And two of these side effects, or these allergic reactions, actually ended me in the ER. One of them was temporary blindness. I don't know if you could even imagine what that would feel like, but it was terrifying. And the second one was a seizure. And so it became very apparent that the pathway that I was on, or this vicious cycle that I was on, was not working, and it wasn't healing me. And it was not only destroying my immune health, like I said, but it was destroying my mental health. So I was in a state of despair, and I really had no clue as far as what to do. A girlfriend of mine at the time, many moons ago, introduced me to essential oils. It was brand new to me at the time. This was decades and decades ago, and it was a foreign concept that basically that I could use something like plant compounds instead of antibiotics and pharmaceuticals to help my body naturally overcome the challenges that I was experiencing. And it took me down the deep dive of natural health and wellness. And so it led me down a pathway of exploring supplements, of exploring various herbs, of exploring food as medicine, which is one of the core tenets of my now movement that I called the Healthy Living REBElution. I explored nature therapy, which is another one of my core tenets. And I dove into the healing arts, things like yoga, EFT, like tapping, energy and frequency healing. And then something terrible happened. I had tragedy strike my family. I had 3 family members die within a 3-month period of time. One of them was my dad, and he committed suicide. And the process of discovering this was equally traumatic. I found out that my dad died one night while I was scrolling on Facebook. Somebody said R.I.P. Tim Shipley, and it sent shockwaves down my soul. I reached out to my then former stepmom and was like, did my dad die? And I was lied to about what had happened. I actually had to subpoena the court documents to get his death certificate. And I will never forget the moment that that manila envelope arrived at my house, and I opened that envelope and I pulled out the death certificate, and I discovered the way that my dad had died. Not only that, but there was a lot of confusion and obviously grief and drama surrounding my dad's death. So needless to say, I went from being an overperforming type A room mom, team mom, teacher, graduate student who was on this healing journey to discover how I could heal myself naturally, to being completely flatlined. I literally had like the soul, the life breath of me sucked out of my body. I fell to my knees, and I will say that I felt like I stayed down on the ground for a very, very long time. I went from being a very organized person, a very detailed oriented person, somebody that had a great memory, somebody who was in charge of all the things, to not even be able to do basic functions, to feeling like I couldn't even get out of bed. I felt like I was basically carried to my baccalaureate ceremony for my graduate degree. That whole time was a complete immense blur. And as you can imagine, having gone through this process of grief and having my immune system compromised for so long and falling into this cycle of anxiety and depression, that this absolutely knocked me down, and it kept me down for a very long time. I am somebody that had all of the right tools in my toolkit, so to speak, and I often talk about my wellness toolkit. And so, like I was using essential oils, I was taking the best of the best supplements that money could buy, I was using herbs, I was using food as medicine, I was outside every single day, earthing and grounding and moving my body. I was engaged in the healing arts, things like yoga and EFT and frequency healing, and I had the best of the best that money could buy. And even though I was on this pathway of healing, I would say that my baseline was always still very low. And there was really, it was like a normal, my new normal was just never what it was before. Even though before I was highly stressed out, I was still highly functioning. I've always been an optimistic person. I've always loved the heck out of life. But I just felt like, even though I was a high achiever, even though I was accomplishing a lot in my life, it was a lot of hard work on the inside. It took an immense amount of energy just to do the things that would normally come to me naturally. And I genuinely thought that it was as good as it could get. I mean, like I said, the best of the best lifestyle, the best of the best products that I could get my hands on, the best of the best therapies. And you can imagine my shock when I was introduced to these incredible biofeedback patches, these passive biofeedback patches called Super Patch. I was actually super skeptical, and I don't know why, because I thought, because I'm already immersed in the world of frequency healing and, sound healing and energy healing and all of this stuff like Reiki. But for some reason, I was just skeptical of patch products in general. And I actually thought that this was a different patch product to begin with. And I had already kind of explored it, and I just didn't think that it was the right choice for me. And so I actually was like, I had a lot of negative things to say about it, until one of my girlfriends was very faithful, and she got me on the phone, and she was like, can I just tell you about these things? And I said, sure, I love you. I will listen to you. You can practice your spiel on me. and though I was very honest about some of the things that I had perceived about, what I thought I was going to be hearing about, she was like, I don't think we're talking about the same thing. And I thought, all right, just send me some pictures. And when those photographs and the information came across my phone, I literally put my foot in my mouth, and I was like, okay, I am interested, and I want to hear more about them. And then I started using them, and the very first patches the first patch I started using was the REM patch for sleep. because as you can imagine, my sleep cycle was largely disrupted for a very long time. But the story I want to tell you about today is really my mental health journey. And so with regards to my mental health and wellness, as I told you, I was doing all of these incredible things, which I am very much an advocate for. They are baseline, and you definitely do need to engage in all of these things, and which is why I do teach and preach about them. But I started using 2 patches to begin with. The first patch that I started using was this Joy patch. The Joy patch is always, excuse the dirt, and I fell when I was camping, but the Joy patch is always baseline for me. So I started using the Joy patch, and it was almost immediate for me that I felt like this. It's very difficult to explain, but if you've experienced low mood, if you've experienced low motivation, if you've experienced having your baseline dropped significantly for a very long period of time, it was almost like sunshine for my soul. Like, if you know me at all, you know I'm always outside. You know, I love being in the sun. I'm literally like a lizard, or like a solar battery that needs to be charged at all times. And so it was like just this dose of sunshine inside of my soul, and it just felt good. And so I was like, I'm going to keep using that patch because it just felt good. And then I started pairing it with the Boost patch, which I don't use this patch very often anymore, but that was the combination that really took my baseline from being really low and really suffering and struggling with low motivation. And like I said, I'm very much a high achiever, but it required just this immense amount of effort, internal effort, mental effort. It just required so much of me to do what it was that I wanted to do. So the Boost patch was amazing. People use this patch because it's a drug-free alternative for energy. I advocate for people using this patch so that they can get off chemical-laden sports drinks and all the stuff that those 5-hour energy drinks are very, very bad for you. They actually cause scarring on your heart tissue, and, it's very dangerous. But I digress. Nikki living naturally, okay? And so actually what this patch did for me was it's like I was able to just function at a higher baseline. So the Joy patch and the Boost patch together, I felt more motivated. I got more done throughout the day without feeling as fatigued. It lasted and sustained me all day, and I just was such a feel good. Like, it was just like, this was my baseline that I had been missing for a really long time. And then I dove further into the science about the patches, and I learned about the Peace patch and actually the science behind the Peace patch and the studies that were done on this patch. And it was extraordinarily intriguing to me because this is not just like your everyday average calming product. This is a product that is actually clinically proven to help with anxiousness and to improve your mental health factors. And it was presented at the World Congress of Psychiatry. I happen to know that when the science was published, that there was a significant, 8-figure offer for these patches, the technology for this patch, which was declined, thank the good Lord, which is why we have them in our hands. And it was compelling enough for me to consider using it. Now, what happened when I very first put this patch on my body actually freaked me the heck out. So I put this patch on my body, and there's no ingredients in these patches. They're completely drug-free, ingredient-free, passive biofeedback patches. It is called Vibro-Tactile Touch Technology. It's these series of ridges and bumps that, when they touch the skin, communicate to your central nervous system through your vagus nerve to send proper information to the brain and body signaling, okay? So this helps your body regulate stress. This helps your body become more resilient to stress, to manage all of those things that go along with that. So I put this on my body for the first time, and I'm a very clean, highly in tune, highly sensitive person. So this doesn't happen to everyone. It hardly happens to anyone, actually. I do know a few people who have experienced this, but when I put this patch on my skin, within seconds, I felt my baseline drop significantly. So I felt like I was on top of the world with the Boost patch and the Joy patch, and I put this Peace patch on, and I felt like, woof. And it freaked me the heck out because I don't want to feel that way. I was like so freaking freaked out that I ripped the patch off and I was like, what the heck was that? I don't want that. Like, that was scary to me. It felt like I was, it induced a sense of panic because I didn't want to be low. I wanted to have my mood raised. I wanted to be able to, you know, function better. I wanted to be able to feel like myself again. And so it was actually super scary. And I talked to a couple of my friends who are in the natural health and wellness industry, and some very highly experienced patch educators, and they had described to me what was happening. And I want to share this with you in case it's something that happens to you, or so that if you are like me and you can relate to my story, you can understand the importance of having a tool like this in your arsenal and on your body every day. So I had been living in a state of chronic fight or flight, which is a highly dysregulated state for my nervous system, which means that my cortisol levels were through the roof. Everything that was happening in my life was being detected as a threat. And even though I was an optimistic person, I was still functioning fairly well in my life and achieving a lot of things that people celebrated. I was literally my baseline. So even though my mood was really low and my motivation was really low, and I was still struggling with grief and sadness, internally it was taking me a lot of mental and physical effort to do the things that I wanted to do. My body, my brain, my nervous system were in just this massive heightened state of fight or flight. And what happened when I put that peace patch on my body is that it's so freaking effective that it dropped it dropped me into my parasympathetic nervous system. So it took me out of fight or flight and dropped me into this state of well-being that I had not experienced for so long, that's what it felt like for me. And so they encouraged me, armed with this information, to try the peace patch again and to be diligent about it and to just, you know, walk myself through it and assure myself that I am safe and that the way I feel is okay and that this is for my best and highest good, and I trusted the process. And so I began the journey of wearing the combination of the peace patch and the joy patch every single day. These two patches have absolutely changed my life. Now, I will never forget the moment that I realized the depth of the impact that this was making on my nervous system. I was on a hike, and some of you know this story, and I'm an avid hiker. I'm outside all the time. I believe moving your body is essential for life, and I do teach and preach that in my Healthy Living REBELution. I was outside on a hike, and I have prescription glasses, and you know, I try to what do you call that? Like, I try not to wear my sunglasses all the time because it's actually not very healthy for your body. So I digress. I'll tell you that story another time. So I was outside hiking and I was looking around and I was like, this is just crazy. Like, everything is so vibrant. The colors are so bright and it's just like so rich. And it was just this mind-blowing experience. Like, all of a sudden, everything around me was like in Technicolor, and I was kind of tripping out, and I was like, okay, like, what the heck is going on? And I had my glasses on at the time, and I took my glasses off, and it was just like it just like, you know, like, whoa, like all the colors were just coming at me, and it was just so intense and so amazing. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And you know, me, former teacher, master's degree in education, 17 years in integrative health and wellness, I was like, I got to figure out what the heck it is I'm experiencing and why I'm experiencing it. And through my research, I found out that when your brain is in a heightened state of fight or flight, especially for a very long time, like you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, that your brain actually down-regulates non-essential functions, like the way that you perceive color. And so what was happening after I had been wearing these patches, I want to say for like, you know, like 1 or 2 months solid every single day, was that all of a sudden these functions were coming back online. And all of a sudden I was perceiving the world in the way that I had not seen it in a very, very long time. And I started crying on the trail, and I started crying once I realized what was happening in my body when I dove into this research. And I became very convicted in my heart that I need to tell people about these patches for their mental health, because I had all of the best wellness products, practices, lifestyle that you could possibly have. And the reason why I am so passionate about it is because those things absolutely transformed my life and gave it back to me. But adding in VTT, these super patches, absolutely took me back, or, you know, it was that nervous system regulation that was missing. And although I was engaging in a lot of quote unquote nervous system regulation practices, like nature therapy is the original form of regulation, highly important, and doing things like energy work and you know, frequency healing, those are all incredibly powerful for nervous system regulation. But the problem is that all of those things require you to be actively participating in them, and you can't walk away with like a sound healing bowl everywhere you go. You know what I mean? Like, you can't walk around. I mean, EFT tapping is incredible because you can do it throughout your day in a very, you know, like nonchalant way. But again, like, are you really just going to be tapping every moment of your life? It's not even feasible. And so being able to have a form of biofeedback that's passive, meaning that I don't have to participate in it. I don't even have to think about it. All I have to do is just stick this patch on my body that has no ingredients in it, that has no side effects in it, that has nothing actually being absorbed by the body. I'm not overriding any symptoms, not symptoms, but systems in my body. I'm not chemically changing anything about my mind or my body. It's literally just helping my brain and my body communicate better so that my nervous system can be healthy, so that my functions in the body can be functioning more optimally. That's a freaking no-brainer, actually, pun intended, for me. And so I hope that this message has been inspiring to you, in that if you are somebody who is in the beginning of your health journey or your health story, where maybe you're where I was stuck on a cycle of pharmaceutical drugs that were meant to help me, that were designed to help me fight the infections that I was experiencing, and you find yourself stuck there, and you find yourself not healing. And not only do you find yourself not healing, but you find yourself declining, and you find yourself experiencing side effects from those things that are unwanted, and you find yourself in a state of despair like I was, with not any answers or idea of how to begin the journey to repair your wellness, to reclaim your life. That is why I am here. That is why I'm so passionate about sharing my lifestyle, about sharing the Healthy Living Revolution with you, about teaching you about the 5 pillars of health and daily health habits, and how you can reclaim your life and you can thrive naturally. And when you are in a state of vibrant health, when you are in a state of emotional health, then you can actually live out your intended purpose in life with passion and joy and excitement, and you can make a greater impact in this world. And that's what it's really all about. So if you have any questions about my story or about my journey or about these super patches or any of the other natural health and healing modalities that you will find me teaching and preaching about on my page, I'm an open book, and I would love to connect with you and come alongside you on your health journey. Tomorrow I'm going to be diving deeper into my journey with food as medicine. There's multiple layers to this, and I'm going to just go ahead and start with my relationship with food and how I fell in love with intuitive eating and what that has done for me. So if you are somebody who finds yourself struggling with your relationship with food, food noise, or just not even sure how to go about overhauling your diet without feeling like you're giving up everything in life, then make sure you tune in tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for sharing this space and this time with me. I love you so much. Be well.